This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. Today we are back with another episode of DIY Diagnosis, the series here on my channel where I go to the thrift store, come back to you with some of my most interesting and often questionable finds, and share with you what I would do to make those items look amazing in a space. Sometimes it's a full thrift flip transformation, other times it's just some creative styling. As you know, I'm running out of space in my house and I already have a lot of projects in the works, so I can't always take on new projects, but I am in the thrift store all the time and I have so many amazing ideas for things that I see there, so I like to share those with you whenever I can. Now, often when I shoot these episodes, I'm hitting a couple different thrift stores in the same day, and so I find myself circling around the store multiple times to come up with some items that have real potential. But this time, I've been documenting any interesting items that I've seen at the thrift store over like the last month and a half. And so there are some items this time that I think are especially interesting. One project I might still try to take on if they're still there when I go back. And another item I really regret not buying. I had good reasons not to, but I think this item would have been such an amazing transformation, so stay tuned for that. Before we get started today, if you like this kind of video and you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit the like button. And if you want to check out some of my ongoing thrift flips and DIY projects in my space, be sure that you're subscribed. I can't wait to get started today. Let's jump on in. Okay, so first we're going to start out with some lighting. There is a pair of lamps that's been at the REISSUED where I work for a couple of months now. It started out at $20 each, which I think was a little bit high, but it's slowly creeping on down. These are super unique. They look to be mid-century to me based on the shape and the texture of the lampshades. One of the lampshades is missing entirely, which I think is part of why these have hung around the store for so long. However, it is unique to find a pair of lamps like this at the thrift store, so if you were looking for matching lamps for bedside tables or something, this might be a great option. So I love the shape of the lamp bases and this kind of stony texture. It looks to me like these bands were like a wood veneer that's been painted in this dusky pink, which gives it a very 80s vibe, which I'm not into. So if I wanted to go back to that wood veneer look, I would just remove what's on here and rewrap this with a nice wood veneer banding. I'm all about that lately. I feel like I talk about that in every video now, but I've been finding an iron-on veneer banding to be so easy to use, so I think that would be a quick way to get these back to what I think they might have looked like originally. However, if you're not feeling the wood look, or if that's not the right look for the space, I would consider spraying the whole lamp base in one of those stone look spray paints to give this kind of a concrete look. I think that would make these feel a little bit more contemporary and less retro. As for the lampshades, of course you could just source some new lampshades for this. I always like to find them at the thrift store because I find them to be a bit expensive, but it's hard to find duplicates. And one of my favorite things about this style of mid-century lamp is the kind of extra tall shape of the drum shade. A lot of contemporary drum shades seem to be a bit shorter, and I think that taller look really adds some height to a space and gives that really unique mid-century feel. So I would consider removing all the fabric on the shade that's intact, sourcing a ring for the other lamp to go on the bottom, and then making my own lampshades with this. I've been seeing this done a lot lately where there's like an interior paper that goes on the inside and you put the fabric on the outside and it's wrapped around. It seems like a pretty simple thing to do and would give these a nice custom look and be able to retain that original shape of the shade. Making my own lampshades is something that I definitely foresee myself doing in 2025. Right now, I'm too busy picking up other new skills on Skillshare, who is the sponsor of today's video. I mentioned last time that I was taking a class on Skillshare at Adobe Premiere Pro to boost my editing skills, and I have since completed that class and now been burning through classes in color correction for Premiere Pro. I took a beginning woodworking class, and now I'm taking a class in using Photoshop to create realistic renderings of spaces for interior design. Maybe I'll incorporate that into my DIY diagnosis videos at some point, but one thing at a time. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes in DIY, painting, woodworking, furniture restoration, and so much more. Whether you're looking for specific guidance and resources for your DIY projects, or if like me, you're looking to build specific software skills to enhance your creative projects, Skillshare offers so many classes with industry experts that can help you achieve your goals. You can utilize learning paths, which are sequential class collections curated to help you master a specific skill, or you can do like I do and pick and choose your classes by searching for whatever you need to learn right now. I'm finding myself on Skillshare a lot in the evenings as a way to wind down. It's fun and calming, but still productive. The first 500 people to use the link in my description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. It's totally free to try, so go do it right now. Alright, next up in the lighting category is this blue lamp that was at Goodwill for $12. This is kind of a royal blue ceramic with a little lucite base. It's interesting, when I look at this shape initially, it just screams 80s to me, but it occurs to me as I dive more into Art Deco design, I'm a little bit passionate about that right now, that's kind of my vibe. Clearly this lamp was kind of an 80s does Art Deco, so while it's hard to unsee the 80s reference, I think that if we get down to the core of the actual shapes of this lamp, it's really quite beautiful. And so I've been racking my brain about how to strip this of its 80s reference and give back that true Art Deco design. Ultimately, I think that color is key here. I think that if we went to a white or a beige kind of place, we're still in the 80s. So I say we take this totally black and give it a matching black shade, maybe with a gold interior on the shade. I think that a glossy black spray paint finish would keep that kind of glam element, and having the shade match would just keep this really streamlined. Drum shade would be fine, but maybe we go for a shape that's a little bit more unexpected. I'm still not totally sure, but I think this piece has a lot of potential, so if you have any ideas for this, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Now, speaking of lamps that have a matching shade and base, I saw this one at Goodwill for $7. I actually, from afar, like the way that this looks because, again, it feels very streamlined and cohesive, and it feels different than what we're used to seeing. I feel like I've seen a ton of turquoise lamps with white shades. It's a good look, but color drenching the whole lamp just feels a little bit more unexpected and kind of exciting. Now, upon further inspection, I can see that someone just went crazy with the can of blue spray paint and sprayed the shade and the base together. Personally, I think that spray painting a shade is a bad idea because ultimately light is going to come through there and you're going to see any inconsistencies in the paint job where it's thicker or patchy. So my strategy for this would be to try to source either the fabric first or the spray paint first, depending on what the shade is, and then try to color match those as closely as possible, and then either build a new shade from scratch. Again, that's on my list. Or you could just cover the existing shade in the fabric to give a nice even finish. I wouldn't advise spray painting it. Moving on to furniture. I saw this kind of Art Deco looking cabinet at the REISSUED store for $100. Again, feeling the Art Deco vibes right now. I love the shape of the hardware on this. I'm definitely taking inspiration from that. I was having a hard time choosing what kind of hardware to use for my DIY vanity. Y'all offered me a ton of suggestions in the comments, and we ultimately did make a decision about that, which I will reveal in the final bathroom video. But this would have been a good option as well. Something that has this kind of Art Deco earring vibe almost. Personally, I think the silver is a bit of an odd choice on this piece. I would be interested to know if these were original to the piece. I think they would look better in gold, and so I think that rub and buff would be a great way to do that. Since this is a very vintage feeling piece, an antique gold finish is going to be best here, so I would remove that hardware and spray it black, and then go over the top with the rub and buff just to hit the highlight so that you get the depth and give that kind of antique look. The rest of the piece is in very good shape aside from the top. It has this really beautiful veneer pattern on the top. Part of it is peeling off, other areas have water damage, and so I think it would probably be best to maybe try to just remove the panel that's damaged, or possibly the whole top on this, and to replace that veneer entirely. I've seen people do this a lot where they get sheet veneer that's iron on, kind of like the banding that I've been using, put it over the whole top, and then go along the edge with the blade to get a nice clean cut. If I was feeling crazy ambitious, I might try to match the original pattern on this that was kind of pieced together. I love that look. However, on a piece like this, it is quite tall, and so even me standing at 5'10", I'm kind of average height, and I couldn't really see the top of it that well anyway. So if we were talking about like a buffet height or a dining table, it would be totally worth doing that full design again. But for something like this, you really have to get a good look over the top to even see that design in the first place. So for ease here, I think that going with one sheet of veneer would be the right way to go. While we're on the veneer train, I saw this coffee table and two end tables at the REISSUED store. The coffee table was $35, I think, and the end tables were $15. These have kind of like an 80s postmodern feel to me, but I think the shapes are actually really nice. I'm not a fan of the kind of fake marble Formica brown kind of feeling, but I actually think the mirror on the coffee table is really cool. It was kind of water damaged, so you might have to go in and replace some mirrored panels. That may not be entirely worth it in this case. However, I've been seeing a lot of these kind of 80s style blocky sculptural pieces, and the finish looks so dated, but the shapes have so much potential. So on a piece like this, I think it would be amazing to go in with that wood veneer over the top, laying it out, cutting those edges. I think that having these pieces be enveloped in a warm wood tone and have that beautiful grain would just enhance the sculptural shapes and give them a really natural feeling. And I think that pieces like this would be a great way to experiment with that kind of pieced wood grain design. Since these are fairly simple shapes to work with, and since you can see them from a number of different angles, I think that would bring a really beautiful, timeless, vintagey feel to these really modern shapes. Next up, I saw these bent plywood chairs at Goodwill for $8 a piece. Again, I try to challenge myself when I look at a piece in the thrift store to remove any connotations that I have and really see an item for what it is. Something about this bent plywood look is very early 2000s. It looks sort of like a dorm room kind of piece, something that you would see in like a cafeteria. West Elm had a lot of these in their collection for a while in the early 2000s. Again, it's easy to look at these and say, wow, that doesn't feel like it's very of the moment. However, these were in great condition, and when you break it down to the actual forms, the shapes are actually quite modern and can work with a lot of different design styles. So I think that with this kind of ebony finish, any little scratches and dents can be filled in with a stain marker. I think the key element to keeping these from feeling dated is to pair them with a lot of really natural elements. So pairing these chairs with some more luxe natural finishes like marble and linen and natural wood would create a nice juxtaposition and make these feel more retro 60s rather than early 2000s. If you were feeling more experimental, I remember when West Elm did a Robert Rauschenberg collection, and there were some chairs like this that were printed with some of the Rauschenberg prints. And so I think it could be fun to do a paint job on these that feels like statement art, something that's kind of pop art or maybe historical art, to make these into a kooky, eclectic focal point for a space. Next up, we have this campaign desk that I saw at Goodwill for $25. This is a bit of an odd color combination with the blue and the white together, but honestly, I'm not mad about it. This desk is in pretty good shape, and I think that a campaign style like this is totally classic. I would personally give this a coat of spray paint, probably in a high gloss lacquer finish. I think that's my favorite look for a campaign piece. We flipped a campaign style dresser like this last year, and I think the result is super beautiful. Personally, for my space, I would paint the whole piece in one color, but if you were looking for a pop of color in your space, I think that keeping the blue or going to maybe an emerald green or like a really orangey red kind of color would look fantastic. Now, I noticed that this piece was sitting at Goodwill for multiple weeks, and that makes sense to me based on what I've seen with desks at the REISSUED. So many desks like this don't have a very wide area to sit in, and so they're not really practical for what most people want in home office now. I know this from experience because Matt and I have been looking at a desk for his office in my house, and we've been struggling to find anything that has a cool vintage feel, that has a wide enough seating area to be able to accommodate like a modern chair and multiple monitors and things that people that work from home utilize. So despite this being a really cool piece in great condition, this did sit there for multiple weeks. And so I have a second thought about this if you were not in need of a desk. What if we chop it right down the middle and make this into 2 nightstands? So you'd have one that has 3 drawers. We'd keep the side on there. We might have to do a little work to refinish that side to give it a nice clean finish, but these are painted, so that gives us more options. And then on the other side that has the single drawer, we would build some new legs to go on there so that it could stand up on the other side of the bed. So many people are into matching nightstands. I don't totally get that. I prefer a more eclectic vibe myself, but I think this would be a great way to get the vibe of a matching nightstand, but to change it up a little bit, and then also to utilize this piece. I know it was sitting there for a while. I'm guessing it went to 50% off. I really hope it didn't go in the trash. So I think that chopping this up and making it into nightstands would be a much more functional use for the 21st century and save this piece from the landfill, hopefully. Okay, next up is this little vintage oak pedestal table that I saw at the REISSUED for $100. This comes with 3 chairs, which is why I wanted to talk about this. I think this kind of table is really beautiful. It comes with a leaf, it's expandable, it's great. Again, working at the REISSUED, I noticed the tables with 3 chairs are a harder sell because people want sets of 4 or 6, and 3 just feels a little bit off. So despite this piece being in great condition, I actually even like the upholstery on this with that kind of rusty orange color. I think this would be hard for a lot of people to use in their space. And so in my mind, the solution here is to make this part of a little banquette. You can have the 3 chairs along the side, do kind of an L shape along the other side. I would go ahead and put the leaf in permanently so it's a nice oval shape. Maybe this is not a totally groundbreaking idea, but I feel like with a lot of the banquettes that we've been seeing over the last couple of years and that kind of trend, it often tends to veer into very modern territory. With a really classic traditional looking piece like this, utilizing these pieces in that way may not come to mind for some people. Now, with that being said, I would keep the lines of the banquette very streamlined, very modern. I would let the more traditional table and chairs be in contrast to that so that it doesn't feel overly stuffy. But yeah, I think this would be a great solution for a small space. And finally, the one that got away. I mentioned at the beginning that there was an item that I regretted not purchasing, and so here it is. I saw this leather sofa at Goodwill for $25. This was real leather. It had a really beautiful tufted detail on the back. I think that $25 is a total steal for a real leather sofa. If you're at the REISSUED and you're in the market for a sofa, you want to be able to tell whether something is real leather or not. I personally try to grab for a part of it and feel behind. Often a faux leather will have a very slick backing on it or something that feels kind of like felty. But another dead giveaway is to look for any scratches or tears. With vinyl and faux leather, you can often see that top layer peeling up a bit and revealing kind of a woven look below. With real leather, the layers aren't going to separate like that, so it's much easier to repair and get something that looks totally new. So this piece was in really good condition, but even if there was discoloration or whatever, I would go in with a shoe polish or a leather treatment and bring this back to a really beautiful finish. Now, I think this is a decent sofa as is, but I'm not personally really a fan of the arm shape and the base on this. It just feels a bit traditional in like an early 2000s McMansion kind of way and not like in a cool vintage kind of way. So my idea for the sofa would be to remove the cushions and to remove the back. You can see that it was kind of sewn up over the back, so I would seam rip right along there and peel all that back together. And then I would want to build a really sleek, squared off, modern looking frame for this and sit all those little cushy, tufted leather elements inside. I think that contrast would be really amazing with this really clean exterior and a really lush, cushy kind of interior. I often find myself attracted to really clean, modern furniture, but I just find that it's so uncomfortable and it can sometimes feel kind of sterile. So something about a sleek, modern shell with a nice worn leather interior just feels right to me. I wish that I could take this home because I think that would have been an amazing project, but I don't have space for it. I don't have a vehicle that was big enough to get it home, so it had to stay there, and it did sell right away because of course it's a steal. So better luck next time. All right, everybody, this was a really fun collection of items. I hope you enjoyed this and got some good ideas that you can take with you to the thrift store. Stay tuned here on my channel. I'm gonna be decorating for Christmas next week, which feels really early. I also have a really cool leather jacket chair project that's been in the works for almost 2 years now. I'm gonna take that across the finish line here in the next couple of weeks. So if you wanna check out those projects, be sure that you're subscribed. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon.